Good morning here. We'll move to weather and where we're heading. And obviously, for most of you, appreciate some changes that are underway, and there are more coming, at least for the upcoming week. And given that it's been for many parts of the state, it's been a pretty sometimes uncomfortably warm conditions here. We will see I think, longed for changes with cooler weather expected. That's the general theme of our forecast. It's really a pretty straightforward forecast. I think we'd have to put it in the cool and dry scenario here as we look ahead for the next week. During the last week, though, we still had some warm weather early in the week. Left-hand side, these are temperature departures from normal for the past week. And if we take those averages, they range from just at or maybe a degree cooler than normal. That was true way up in the northern part of the state in the Upper Peninsula. But for most of all of Lower Michigan, especially the southwestern half of Lower Michigan, you can see our temperature departures were on the order of 4 to 6 or more degrees above normal, which again continues a pattern that we've seen during a lot of the growing season of warmer than normal conditions. On the right-hand side here, also something we've been watching carefully. Precipitation was fairly widespread across the state. There were a couple of exceptions to that, here on the right-hand side here, our weekly totals generally range from 1 to 2 inches or more, especially across the north, but also you can see in an area here across central Lower Michigan. And I point that out because that's one of the driest areas, and we have wide variety of conditions here for this growing season because of the spotty nature of the rainfall. But the rain that did come, especially in west central and southwestern Lower Michigan, was arguably some of the most significant or the heaviest rain we've seen in several weeks in that area. They really needed the water badly. Uh, Coming a little bit late for some crops, but still will benefit others. But again, some of those yellows in there, that's 2 inches or more. You can see, especially in the Grand Rapids area, that was an area that has really been missed repeatedly, but did finally get some much needed precipitation. So some changes, some positive changes there. Some slippages other places. You can see to the north of that, there's an area in the blues there, less than a half an inch. So again, just like we've seen so many times, wide variability or high variability with precipitation totals from place to place. But this past week was really pretty good in terms of rainfall coverage. And then now resulting from that, our soil moisture, again, is all over the charts here, ranging from above normal or excess in many northern parts of the state, especially the Northeast, to significantly below. And here are the color scheme on the right-hand side with our looking. These are soil moisture values expressed as a percentile, with the low numbers being low relative to climatology and vice versa. The high numbers in the blue here are relatively high soil moisture contents. This is looking at the top approximately 3 feet of the profile, and again, this would be for a rain-fed system. And you can see with the reds and browns here, those are really low values, but we've much of central Lower Michigan, because of the being missed by precip here, is still abnormally dry for this time of the year. For reference on the left-hand side here, I did or have included the last version of the U.S. Drought Monitor. There's actually a new one coming out here, just actually in the next hour or so. But you can see that area here with the yellows and browns indicating abnormally dry conditions, even some D2 or severe drought still persisting across areas of the Saginaw Valley, and then also over in the west central part of the state. That's been more recently over the last 4 to 6 weeks of the development of the dryness there. But there's definitely a correlation there, no question. And that is, again, that's the driest part of the state. But we do also have, again, in contrast, we do have areas of the state where the soil moisture is actually above normal. So it really just depends on where you are. Degree day accumulations, thinking about a warmer than normal growing season here thus far for many areas. These are now the seasonal totals for an annual crop, and this is specifically looking really at corn, from the beginning of May through the 19th. And these are the 8650 cutoff degree days, again, which is what we're using typically to monitor corn growth and development. But those values range from about 1250 in the far north to now about 2200 in the far south. And more importantly, here on the right-hand side here, if we look at those values relative to normal, you can see there are a few spots, central upper, a couple spots across the northern lower, where with the greens and blues we're at, or maybe a little bit behind that normal. But for the vast majority of the state, with the warmer colors, the yellows and reds here, we've got a surplus. And for the southwestern lower, where you see that darker red there, we've got a significant surplus. So you can see here, in some cases, more than 200 units ahead of normal. So the bottom line here is, and next week, I will be showing you some, well, looking ahead here at the growing season. But in general, it means that our crops, our annual crops, many of them, which are temperature dependent, are going to be finishing up earlier than normal. We're going to end the season with very, very likely with a significant surplus of degree days. And so our race to mature and get our crops finished up here before the season will be less of a concern this year that it is in some, again, because of the warm conditions. Also, even though we are looking at cooler weather in the near term, the longer term outlooks, and there's also a new long term outlook set of outlooks coming up here this morning from Climate Prediction Center. We'll look at those next Thursday, but anticipating more warmer than normal. At least that'll be our outlook for the fall season as well. So the warmer than normal conditions expected to redevelop and continue and into the fall season. Well, currently on the map, it's a little bit of a taste in some spots of early fall, certainly late summer at best, but we'll call it early fall. We do have some temperatures in the 40s here across the northern half of the state, but warmer as you go south. Still 60s, but in the northern part of the state, again, notice a couple values in the low and mid 40s, many in the 50s. So it's a cool start to the morning. Canadian origin air mass in place now over the state, and that's you're going to hear the theme here, at least in our short-term forecast. Virtually no precipitation at all across the state, maybe a little areas with some fog reported here and there, but in general, high pressure here today over the state. Here's our weather map as of 8 o'clock this morning, and again, the big blue H here, high pressure out of Canada, locked in over the region, and that's going to be with us for at least the next 24 to 36 hours and be our major or dominant weather factor for our forecast. But looking at in contrast, especially if you're in the southeastern part of the state where we were socked in with clouds most of the day, we will definitely see much more in the way of sunshine here today. Uh, 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 with that high pressure in place, and that'll be the case tomorrow as well. So today, high temperatures over most parts of the state in the 70s, so not far away from normal. We'll drop down into the 40s and 50s here tonight, overnight. Again, another comfortable night for sleeping. And then tomorrow, more high pressure. Here's the map for tomorrow morning. High pressure still here, so another dry day. However, note here off to our left, we've got our next weather system, that frontal system. It's approaching from the northern Great Plains into the Great Lakes area. That's the next chance for any precipitation that will begin in western upper Michigan, probably tomorrow evening, and then gradually. Here's Friday evening. You can see the green there, the chances for scattered showers and a couple thunder showers. This is not a major rain producer, though. I think it's important to note here, moisture with this is somewhat limited with the system. So even where rain occurs, we're talking about a tenth or two of an inch. It's not a nor or widespread nor heavy. But we will see that chance for rain continue to move to the south and east. Here's Saturday morning. So while Upper Michigan has the highest probabilities later tomorrow, on Saturday we'll see those odds shift to the south and east. But most areas we're talking maybe a 30, possibly a 40% chance of seeing precipitation. So not a prolific rain producer is expected, and many areas will remain dry. So that system moves through by late Saturday, and it brings in a dry day on Sunday. and possibly a little bit into Monday. But here's the big change, and I've put some forecast guidance up here from one of the models, the U.S. medium range forecast model. And there's a couple panels on here, but the big news is in the upper right-hand side here. If we look at the upper air pattern, this is for Monday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. Look at this that blue area there, a big upper air trough, and that's a type of feature we see in the cold season, not during the warm season, not even during the latter part of the summer, but a very high amplitude, big north to south range of this size of this feature, and that's basically going to open up the high latitudes and the northern Canada or air from northern locales down into the lower 48, the continental U.S., including the Great Lakes region. So the upper air, again, strong. And this one's been in the forecast guidance here for several days. So there's high confidence in that. On the lower right-hand side here, these are temperature departures from normal at 8 a.m. on Monday, and the cool colors you can see here indicating significantly cooler than normal weather expected. Monday will probably be the coolest day of this entire outbreak. So this is sort of a secondary batch of cool air. We have one now. The one that's coming early next week will be even cooler. And on Monday, as we're looking at the guidance here, we will struggle to get high temperatures really out of the 50s in the north and the 60s in the south. So that'll be the coolest day we've had in a couple months across our growing season. A little bit warmer than that on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, but still significantly below normal. And not to remind anybody about our transition or change in season or looking at the calendar, but if we look at the precipitation again, once again for Monday morning, the greens here, you'll notice a pattern here, and that pattern is it's familiar to many of you. That's actually some lake effect. Now, of course, it'll be warm, it'll be lake effect rain showers, but the fact that the water temperatures in the lakes still now relatively warm, in many cases they're in the 70s in Lake Michigan, a little cooler than that in Lake Superior, but the air is cold enough going over. We will see clouds develop. So some of that early taste of what we usually deal with in Michigan later on in the fall, we'll see some lake effect cloudiness and maybe a few lake effect showers during the day on Monday. So unusually cool, but certainly a major change from where we've been and what we've seen for the last several weeks. And again, that's going to be with us here for a good chunk of the work week next week. Terms of precipitation, not only is it going to be cooler than normal here for the upcoming week, it's going to be drier than normal as well. These are the possible precipitation totals here through next Thursday, and especially for central and southern parts of the state, little or no precip. So a dry week. And for some areas, again, that is an issue because of the existing dryness. Northern parts of the state probably will do a little bit better here this weekend with the upcoming precipitation, but most of what you see here is that weather system that comes through overnight Friday and on Saturday. Not much in the way of any major weather systems expected with that northwesterly or northerly flow aloft pattern that we've got coming up for next week. So cool and dry, very strong likelihood is our forecast trajectory. With the cooler than normal temperatures, it will hold down our potential evapotranspiration rates, our water demand here. Looking generally on these values climatologically are fairly close actually to normal. We'll have some sun. The highest days here for water needs will be tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday when we have the warmest air temperatures. Now, how warm? Well, we'll see probably low 80s for upper 70s and low 80s tomorrow and on Saturday. So still not like last week or the week before with real hot conditions, but those will be the two warmest days. And then downhill after that, as I mentioned, with Monday being the coolest day of the upcoming week. And with those cooler air temperatures, again, that will limit our water demand to about 1300s to 1800s per day from north to south across the state. So that's about what we would typically see in late August. So no big deviation there. Now, moving ahead, If we look at our medium range, both 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks are very similar. If we look at that upper air projection here for again the 26th to the 30th, very similar to what I just showed here a couple slides ago, but this big trough. And that again, that's unusual for the warm season to see something that large, that strong. But it's a highly likely or a high likelihood bringing down Canadian air, and is not a surprise. Upper right-hand side here, very high probability of cooler than normal temperatures. No certainties or guarantees, of course, in this game, but this one's is a pretty high probability that we are going to see that scenario. And then below that, with precipitation, that northerly flow, there will be limited moisture here again. So cooler and drier is also in the cards for the at least for the next week to 10 days. And the 8 to 14 days is calling for something similar. But now that said, how long does that pattern, the left-hand side here, that upper air pattern, how long does that persist? Right now, the guidance suggests that it is somewhat temporary, and once we start to move into that first week of September, we may see certainly some changes, and at a minimum, some moderation. And as I mentioned also earlier, I'm expecting us to go back to above normal or warmer than normal conditions at some point, maybe the second week in September. So what is coming here probably is, at least right now, it appears to be temporary, but still significant in the overall scheme of things. It'd be the longest period we've had with cooler than normal for some time. So wrapping up here again, very straightforward forecast. Drier than normal conditions, certainly, but the next chance for precip coming late Friday and Saturday. And then again, the real cool air arrives here by the end of the weekend and early next week and stays with us probably for about a week. And we'll look at some of the updated long lead guidance as that comes out here later today. We'll be looking at that next week.